Hey there, we're going to go ahead and get started on session 3. So the topic of session 3 is mate selection. So choosing your partner. What I would like for you to do is make sure that you have read your session 3 directions email that I've sent. And then make sure that you watch this video completely before you get started. As a reminder, you'll want to complete the session 3 assigned reading before you start any work. So we're working in chapter 5 this week. You're going to start on page 94 and read through to page 102, stopping once you reach that section entitled Finding a Partner Online. Then you are going to read pages 109 through 113. Now, some of you may find that the information in this chapter is intriguing. You might be interested in reading a little bit more, and you're certainly welcome to, but you're not required. We have 3 activities, and hopefully by now you're kind of in the groove of doing these activities. The first is the journal. So you'll click on the Stages of Family Life journal. There'll be a crash course sociology video to watch this week. Then you'll answer the journal questions. Remember, you're going to format correctly by copying, clicking on Start or Edit My Journal Entry, pasting the format into the entry box. Remember, when you type your response here, you're going to use the More Font Colors tool and change the color. This helps you see very clearly how much you've contributed to the assignment. When you complete your journal entry in paragraph form, using appropriate grammar and proofread what you've put, you can then click the Save Changes button, and that is what submits your journal entry. Once you've completed that, you're going to move into the Section 3 lecture notes. Section 3 lecture notes will begin with you watching a lecture by Dr. Dan on mate selection and love. While you're watching that, complete the Session 3 lecture notes. Now remember, these are Cornell notes. So I have pre-filled in for you the left-hand side, which talks about vocabulary, questions, main ideas, important topics, and then your notes go on the right-hand side. Hopefully by now you're in the swing of things on how to do this. Be sure that you submit in this area of Moodle. Mine looks different from yours because I have an instructor view. So make sure that you submit there prior to the deadline. Finally, you'll complete the mate selection writing activity. Here's the template. Make sure that you submit prior to the deadline. The writing activity this week asks you to return to some pages of your textbook and identify some factors that you select are important to you. Note that in purple on your writing activities, I have told you how much each response is worth. Writing activities are worth 100 points, so you'll want to give them a lot of energy. Now finally, we are going to review the 3 main theoretical paradigms or the 3 theories of sociology as they relate to mate selection. What I'm going to do here is try to give you a little bit of reflection and some statements that kind of go along with each of these 3 theories in terms of mate selection. So when we think about mate selection, that means selecting someone to mate with. I hear you giggling. That's okay. Or selecting a partner. So I'm trying to figure out who I'm going to spend the rest of my life with, or who I'm going to spend the next 10 years with, or who I'm going to spend the next year with. So you are selecting a partner, or you are selecting a mate. And mate has that reproduction theme tied to it. So if you're not interested in reproducing, then you're selecting a partner instead of a mate. So when we look at the structure of selecting a partner or selecting a mate, or the function of that, here's some things to think about. The need for a mate is to build a family. If you remember, in the past, there was always the expectation that you selected a mate and you produced offspring, because it was such a farming type environment where the family depended on the children for work. That has obviously changed today. So what do you find is the purpose of mate selection or partner selection? Do you think that purpose has changed? Absolutely it has. We'll also look at how relationships work, how they function. Who does what in the relationship? How do you figure out who does what? That is part of structuring the function of a relationship. And sometimes the function of a relationship, or how it's structured, truly is dependent upon the two people in the relationship. Think about a geographic area. So, people close to you. Did you know that research shows that most of us actually do create a relationship with someone who is in close proximity to us? So the structure of living in a geographical area truly affects mate selection. How about the structure of social class in our society? Research also shows that the majority of us select a mate or a partner that has a similar social class. Women are more likely than men to marry in a different social class, and oftentimes women marry into a higher social class. Think about the structure or the function of an arranged marriage. That falls into structural functionalism, because historically, marriages can be arranged in certain cultures, in certain countries, and they do that because of the function or the benefit of the families. Now think about the cycle. You date, you get engaged, you plan a wedding and you get married, and then you have children. So that's the structure of a traditional view of a relationship. What does that structure look like in today's times? Some of those traditional ones certainly exist, but non-traditional ones exist as well. And what is your view of what that structure should actually look like? Now, moving into conflict theory, what happens when that structure, the traditional structure or the non-traditional structure of building a relationship and moving into a family unit, doesn't go according to plan? Is it your plan it didn't go according to? Is it your family or your parents' plans it didn't go according to? Think about in terms of conflict theory, what kind of conflict or issues may arise from that? How about the social pressure to make certain choices about who you select as a mate or a partner? The social class that you're in, or even your family unit of parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles. Is there social pressure on you to select a certain type of person for your mate? That creates conflict because sometimes we may not want to select that type of mate. What kind of conflict does that create in your relationship with your mate if you select them anyway and your family doesn't approve? What type of conflict does that create in your family if they are not happy with your selection? Think about the struggle in a relationship between the two partners when things aren't going the way that both partners think they should be. What happens then? Conflict. What about when one partner is violent, or when one partner has extreme insecurities or a drug addiction, or maybe one partner is very controlling? Think about the conflicts that occur in a relationship when you're in that relationship with the mate that has those tendencies. Now, if we think about symbolic interactionism, remember, this is very individualized. This is your particular view of what something means. So, physical traits. Do you look at a person and immediately judge whether that person would be a proper mate or not based upon their physical characteristics? So it might be their eye color or their hair color. It might be their body type. It might be their height. What about their age or their race or the education that they have, the job that they're currently working, the car that they're currently driving? Do you look at their possessions? Do you think it's impressive if they're wearing very expensive clothing? Or does that not matter to you? Do you look at their other possessions, such as where they live, what their house looks like? Maybe you have a meaning attached to cleanliness. Are they messy or are they organized in their home? Are they clean or are they dirty? If you interacted with a potential partner and they were a certain way, or they did not have certain things, or they looked a certain way, do you attach important meaning to those things? Perhaps you judge whether this person would be a good mate or not based upon their hobbies or their interest. So those would be ways that symbolic interactionism can be analyzed through the topic of mate selection. I know that these theories can be so overwhelming and confusing, but I hope that each week as we go through these and we talk about how they apply to our topic, it'll get a little more easily understandable as we move through the semester. If you need additional help, or you're confused, or you have additional questions, please reach out to me through an email.